design, but has not been implemented faithfully. Now, if after many years a faithful implementation is not yet in sight, it is, I think, surely time to consider alternatives. Another current practice which could bear careful examination relates to the training of teachers for the secondary tier. Before the establishment of the B.Ed degree in Nigerian universities, the prevalent way of preparing graduate teachers for secondary schools was to have graduates in the different teaching subjects do a postgraduate diploma or certificate in education. The B.Ed degree came essentially as a fix-it method of producing graduate teachers in larger numbers. Now, over the years, there has been a realization that many of such B.Ed graduates do not have sufficient grounding in the subjects that they teach. Meanwhile, to complicate matters, a number of sub-specializations have developed within the B.Ed degree itself, the most popular of which seems to be educational management, which is hardly a teaching subject. If the standards in the secondary schools have to be raised, it is important to have teachers who are graduates in their teaching subjects first, before having them trained as teachers, as was done in the past. This becomes even more imperative if the sixth form is to be reintroduced into the second tier. I've also discussed elsewhere other changes that can be made to further raise the standard of basic education. Two measures that can ensure an effective workforce at both primary and secondary tiers are effective supervision and constant retraining of teachers. There was a time in this country when the ministries of education maintained a vigorous inspectorate division. The inspectors were so strict that they were a terror in the schools. The effect of this was that the teachers were kept on their toes because they could never predict when the bogeyman would turn up. And it's interesting to see that the bogeyman in Rivers State now is the governor himself. It would appear that this system of inspectorate has almost completely gone, and instead, one all too often hears of scandalous dereliction of duty, particularly in secondary schools, in primary schools, on the part of so-called teachers who apparently have hardly any interest in teaching and guiding their pupils, but are on the constant watch out for a better paid job elsewhere. Indeed, the remuneration of teachers needs urgent review because pay inevitably determines status. Right up to the middle of the last century, primary school teachers, even in the remotest villages in this country, were regarded as part of the elite, sometimes even rated higher than the village head. And for example, Wole Soyinka's The Lion and the Jewel pitches the ballet, no less, against the village teacher for the favors of the local beauty. But sadly, the inevitable surge in the number of schools has resulted in loss of status for the teachers who, lacking motivation, have become demoralized. Therefore, part of the advocated increase in allocation to education in the government's budget should be used to provide for a decent wage for the teachers. A truly professional corps of teachers can then be raised again in this country. The problems of the tertiary level are well documented. They start with a lack of diversification resulting in concentration on the universities. Consequently, polytechnics and colleges of education are still regarded largely as stepping stones to the university. The remedy is to create attractive career prospects for all products of the tertiary tier, and this should not be beyond the ingenuity of the Salaries and Wages Commission. Then there is the well-known problem, of course, of funding, as well as issues of autonomy. It has to be admitted that the government funding of universities has improved substantially in recent years, but there is still more work to be done. And I have recommended elsewhere a systemic change in the way that universities are funded. As regards autonomy, the federal government, which gives the cue in these matters, has also developed a more liberal attitude to the councils of its universities, and even now allows them to choose their vice-chancellors. But vice-chancellors still have to go to Abuja to perfect the award of contracts, because there is a lingering feeling that universities are part of the civil service. But autonomy can also apply to the relationships among the universities themselves. The private universities do not have a problem in this respect, but the federal universities tend to be carbon copies of one another, forced to sing from the same hymn sheet, and even operating more or less an identical university law. Surely, each council should be encouraged to be innovative and exploit its natural advantage. Now, outside of the formal system, we must draw attention to adult education. One of the distinctive features of University College Ibadan, when it was established in 1948, was the institution of a virile department of adult education. The presence of this department was felt in rural areas throughout the country. And perhaps the most notable of its activities was its engagement with tobacco farmers who were made literate in Yoruba and thereafter supplied with literature in Yoruba on tobacco cultivation. Certainly, from being able to read the literature relevant to their occupation, they went on to read other writings in Yoruba. And there is a law, a policy in this country about bilingualism. The indigenous languages have to be developed so that they can be used side by side with the English language. Classes were also held at Ibadan throughout the country for the literate people desirous of improving themselves, even with a view to gaining admission to the university college itself. Now that we have a network of universities throughout the country, the literacy rate in the country can be improved if the universities took an interest in extending their activities to the rural areas. What we have today are distance learning centers, which, though highly desirable, are not the same thing, as these actually prepare students for university degrees. It is also useful to recall that ministries of education in the past used to have very active adult education divisions. Every investment in education yields very rich dividends. And in the current knowledge-based global culture, any people left behind will be reduced to the status of hewers of stone and drawers of water in the global village. Nigeria, like other underdeveloped countries, has a long way to catch up. And that is why our interest in educational development needs to be single-minded, producing, at one end, researchers of the first order, and at the other, worthy masters of their political leaders. I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Once more, please, may we appreciate Professor Ayobanjo. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our dear Prof has attempted to lay the path for us to follow in these 2 days. And we know that issues have been raised. We know they will be discussed. His Excellency also raised a lot more issues. And we know that as very capable hands in the growth of education in our sector, you also will contribute your quota to make sure that the dreams of those who are behind this summit is very successful. Your Excellencies, with your kind permission, we will now go into the questions and answers segment. And may it please Your Excellency that I invite my brother, who is also from Yoruba like I am, join me as I welcome Okpeyemi Agbaje of the RTC Advisory Services to lead us.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, Your Excellencies, Your Excellencies. We've had an inspiring and, of course, as we expected, some fundamental analysis from Emeritus Professor Ayobanjo. He has reminded us that we've tried ignorance and the consequences are here with us. He recommends very strong supervision with proper inspectorate. He draws our attention, an important attention, to the link between the quality of our education and the quality of the electorate, and therefore the quality of our political destiny as a people. He recommends constant teacher retraining, remuneration enhancements, autonomy and funding, the link between autonomy in universities and innovation and distinctiveness of all of these institutions so that each university can exploit its own peculiar or unique advantages. And he draws us to the imperative of adult education and, of course, the activities of universities and other educational institutions in our rural areas where 50% of our people live. I think it's appropriate at this point. There will be a lot more discussions as we go along, but it is appropriate at this point to take a few comments from the dignitaries and the people gathered here. I have 2 microphones in the audience, and if you would like to make a comment, perhaps, or to ask some questions or raise some issues that you believe are pertinent to our deliberations at this summit, kindly indicate, tell us who you are, and ask your question. And please do it in 1 minute or a maximum of 2 minutes. So, the floor is open. We shall take comments. Yes, sir. Questions on the keynote paper that we have heard. Okay, there are two. Okay, Professor Lawrence-Nemi Bello, please give him the microphone.
His Excellency, all protocols observed. My name is Akintola Bello. I can hardly fault what Professor Ayobanjo said. Although he established that there must be continuity within the levels, but he has left out the early childhood education, which is extremely important because the early childhood education also fits into the primary education, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. That's just my comment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Calling attention to policies in respect of early childhood education, and indeed, I know that the policy in Rivers State adequately provides for that segment as well. Any other comments, please? Okay. There's nothing wrong if our people are happy with all that Professor Ayobanjo has said. I think I'll move on. And therefore, okay, Professor Obioma, please.
My name is Professor Godswill Obioma. Your Excellency and distinguished participants, I would like to provide some information regarding the last comment raised by the last speaker in the context of the necessity to incorporate early childhood care and development in the formal system. I would like to say that the new policy on education, which has just been revised, which we hope will present formally to the National Council on Education, has taken care of that. And we're going to have, hopefully from September 2013, all primary schools will, as of policy, incorporate the kindergarten, that's for 5-year-olds, to increase access. And if it's happening in Rivers State, it means there's a step forward to that policy, and it's a good development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Professor Godswill Obioma is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, so he knows what he's talking about. Professor Fubara.
Thank you, sir. I like to make an intervention on the side of promoting science and technology education. I think that as a matter of policy, given the poverty level we have, and seeing that in the universities, Department of Physics, if you ever have 10 qualified people who are applying, you're lucky. Whereas there are thousands of people who want to go to law. A country where science education is not on the front burner, we can do no transformation, because it is science and technology that makes the difference between developed and underdeveloped system. For this reason, it might be a good policy to give an inducement. If a person knows that he's poor, he can't go to school, but he knows that if he's to study physics and mathematics, he has automatic free scholarship as long as he's doing well in school, then you are forcing some people to go and study those things. The very brilliant ones will go into research. The not so brilliant ones will come to teach in the secondary school system, and then we will have enhanced. Yes. No, the excellent, very, very brilliant ones should go into research to higher level. The ones that are not too brilliant as such can go and advance education in science and technology at the secondary level. The production of excess manpower in science and technology is the key to transformation. No, nothing else can transform a nation that where science and technology is not improved. So the teachers should be paid additional income, and the students should be induced to go and study. Shell BP induced me to study what I had to do. That's my intervention.
Thank you very much, sir. providing inducements for studying science and technology. A final comment. Okay? Please, the gentleman in front, right at my left there.
My name is Professor O.J. Isiku. I just want a polite, humble qualification to the last comment raised earlier about those who are very brilliant in science could go to research, those who are not too brilliant could go to teaching. I am a teacher of teachers. And what I will plead is for us to note that if you get the best teachers, you get the best students. You get the best students, you get the best citizens. You get the best citizens, the chances of reducing corruption will greatly be enhanced. So I want to plead with my colleagues to say, let's go for the best to get the best teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that comment addresses many of those who are going to speak. I will take a final comment from the gentleman here. Please give him the mic. He's right in the middle, yes.
Your Excellencies, distinguished resource persons, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Arwen Godwins. I'm the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Justice. Listening to His Excellency and the passion he has restated over and over, and then adding that to what the Nobel laureate said, and then the keynote speaker, we are all agreed that we need to do something about education, the infrastructure, the quality of teachers, but there is one area that I think we need to look at. It is amazing that because we are going digital, some of our students, including graduates, no longer have the opportunity of reading. You'll be surprised how many graduates have not heard of the telephone conversation, nor the shuttle crypt. They've not heard about Idanre or Ibadan. These are famous works for the secondary school poetry class, which were popular in those days in the secondary school. There are some who have not even read Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, but they are on the internet. Your Excellencies, sir, I think we need to reinstate the reading culture by making books available to people to read. This way, we can have people who are not just literate to be able to read and write, but they can compete anywhere in the world. Some graduates have not heard of William Shakespeare. They've not heard of Charles Dickens, but they are arts graduates. This is very sad. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. I think Nigerians now read exclusively for certification, and therefore that's a social issue that we all have to decide. The values of the society, do we value knowledge for its own sake, or do we continue on this path of an educational system that merely issues certificates, sometimes which bear no relationship with the quality of the certificated person? Thank you very much. I would invite Professor Wale Soyinka, the chairman of this session, to make his remarks in response to all we've heard this morning. Professor Soyinka.
Hello. Thank you. I like hierarchy. If the governor demoted himself to the plebeian podium, which was then used by the keynote speaker, I will now demote myself here and address you here. I think that the session has started very well on a marvelously controversial note, Normally for a keynote address for me is something to take time to digest. So I don't even approve of questions coming after or comments. They should be reserved for the seminars, the various committees that meet later on and argue and insult one another sometimes excitedly. I once gave a keynote address and there was a discussant afterwards. I spoke for 50 minutes. The discussant spoke for 1 hour, 10 minutes, trying to summarize what I had said. And I'd never seen such an abuse of position before in my life. And I warned him, you ever do that again, I will attack you physically right on the podium. But I'll just wind up by narrating a small educational tale. When I was head of a department in this country, in the university, we had with me a young man who was a messenger. What he did was empty the scraps of paper and the waste basket into which we threw all our barren thoughts. And eventually we noted that he was interested and he used to come and listen if he could, pretending to pick up the waste paper basket. He would dawdle. And I saw that his eyes would light up with understanding or curiosity. And anyway, I got talking to him. And to cut a long story short, we got him to complete his education, his school certificate, even while he was working with us. From there, he entered the university, competed the normal way without any problem. And the last I heard of him, he was head of department of that, in that very university. So education for me is permanently open, but ideally must be structured from primary school level. No question at all about that. I mentioned very briefly environment, and I hope it's something which will be tackled during the conference. I don't think, Mr. Governor, you should despair about putting up beautiful structures. Sooner or later, believe me, the teachers will turn up, even if you have to go technological, and even if you're going to have to do what is known as virtual teaching. You have one teacher broadcasting to various classrooms through the internet, closed circuit, whatever it takes. It's still better than my experience sometimes when I go. One of my favorite relaxations is to take my gun for a walk in the bush. And believe me, the number of times I've found that the best game are to be found in what were supposed to be classrooms. We pursue them there. I mean, they become just jungles. I mean, no roofs, no nothing. So the animals loved sleeping in those classes. They were the only occupants. They occupied the classrooms by night. The students came and were beaten by the rain during the day. I am not exaggerating. I will tell you, this was even in Abeokuta, in Okiono, some years ago. That's where you found some of the Igala sleeping in classrooms. So as long as you maintain those classrooms, I promise you, you'll find that the material for learning and teaching, you'll find a way of injecting them into the environment. The environment is so important, you'll agree, to find universities where attaché seats are being rented out in what are supposed to be dormitories. And there are no toilet facilities. And to cite one of my universities, my daughter took me in Ife many, many years ago to see the toilet facilities there. And believe me, we didn't need to see, we could smell it from afar. But I went there, believe me, the floor was flowing with feces. I mean, this is real. And to go back to what I said at the beginning, I know that some individual universities have been making serious efforts to resuscitate the universities. I don't want you to think that the situation is as it was many, many years ago. Some consciousness has come back, some seriousness, and I hope that universities, tertiary institutions, will compare their experiences. We'll be able to compare notes about how they managed to raise funds. I know that I made a few appearances on behalf of some universities when I saw how determined they were to rebuild the environment of learning and teaching. So all is not lost, but the situation is desperate, very, very desperate. The kind of education also is important. Those who call themselves Boko Haram, for instance, yeah, they can claim to be educated. They're educated to hate books, you know, and they are not sufficiently educated, even about their religion, to know that some of the greatest philosophers came from that religion. Some of the greatest mathematicians were the pioneers, Muslims, Islamic scholars. So these killers who are roaming around saying that they hate education, they hate Western education, they are uneducated. But they think they're educated. They've been taught on a monorail. That's all. It's a one-track mind. Nothing against monorails, I hope so. And so they need to be re-educated even about their own history, their own culture. So when people talk about a multi-pronged approach, yes, I agree. I approve of the attempt being made to create so-called al-Majiri schools, which will be supervised. The content and the method of teaching will be supervised. At the same time, however, to impart knowledge, you have to have the heads where they belong for the knowledge to be imparted. So at the same time, talk about amnesty as much as you want, but you've got to catch those who are trying to take the heads off where we're supposed to impart knowledge. So it's a multi-pronged approach. When you catch them, you've got to re-educate them very seriously. If they refuse to be re-educated, you must punish them. I'm not sentimental at all. Society must, first of all, protect itself. And the citizens must be taught, must learn how to protect themselves, how to protect their society, how to ensure their own survival. So let's not be sentimental at all about this. I want to see the heads into which I'm putting the material. I want to ensure that teachers are not being slaughtered for following their vocation. Those teachers must be protected. The universities must be reopened. The schools must be reopened. In the United States, in order to see to the education of blacks, the president of that state mobilized the National Guard and escorted a child to school and made sure that the extremists did not blow up that school simply because they did not want that child to be re-educated. So we're at war, and part of the territory of that war is education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when you came into the hall this morning, you saw some children sitting this way and entertaining you. These children are children who have chosen of their own volition to make sure that the governor of Rivers State is happy. Happy because they have told me privately that if the governor could think it was necessary for them to be educated, even when their parents could not fund their education, that it is their duty to make him happy. And they will always make sure that anywhere they are called upon to make people know that there is quality education in Rivers State, they will always be there. Your Excellency, that's why they came this morning. I forgot to tell you, but they are always available anytime you call them. As part of our Rivers hospitality, they came to entertain you. But to do the remaining parts of the job this morning, I want to invite the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communications, Rivers State, Mrs. Ibim Seminetary, to assist us out with what we have simply captioned Rivers Hospitality. Please, let's give her a round of applause.
Your Excellencies, the Chairman, just following your footsteps, I think perhaps I should stay at the back of the hall if you sat here. But since if I stay at the back of a hall, nobody would see me, I'd like to crave your indulgence to stand in front. I just have a couple of minutes, and basically is to say that this is Rivers State. This summit is a testament that we are work in progress. I think listening to the governor of Rivers State, you must see a government that is passionate, a government that is committed to changing yesterday. It's a government that says there are mistakes from the past. We aren't there yet, but we're heading somewhere. We're heading to a new river state. And so we want to welcome you to a state that is at the threshold of a renaissance, to a state that is open for business, to a state that is open to learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. Your Excellencies, River State is a state of excellence, and we do that in many respects. I will now invite Okpeyemi Agbaje to please join me once more as we unfold the next crop of Rivers youths to be honored at this summit. Okpeyemi, please.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, we don't want to take too many distractions, but this is important. 3 children from River State were selected. There was a competitive process of selection. And interestingly, the children who got selected were 3 children from public schools. 3 of them came from community secondary school, Abuloma, Bodo City Girls, Bodo City, Oginigba Comprehensive Secondary School. Those examinations and tests were conducted by an independent NGO, Future Trust Initiative, to select, and children from private schools in River State competed. But the 3 winners, who were then selected to go to the National High School Model UN Conference at the UN headquarters in New York, were from public schools. And they distinguished themselves. They distinguished themselves at that conference. I will invite the 3 of them with their chaperone, Miss Peace Seke Adim Tamuno Ruben, from Community Secondary School, Abuloma, Miss Vivian Miracle Sojia, from Bodo City Girls, Bodo City, Master John Friday Pepple, from Oginigba Comprehensive Secondary School. They presented resolutions at the Model UN Conference. All their resolutions were passed. Some of the topics they presented resolutions on amazed me. Peace presented resolutions on non-communicable diseases challenging global development and preventing and responding to cholera pandemics in developing countries. John Friday Pepple presented resolutions on human trafficking and the right to education. Vivian presented resolutions on prevention of illicit small arms trafficking and line mine use in Asia and the Middle East. We thought that as a signal to the rest of the children in River State, it would be appropriate to have His Excellency meet these children, present a memento to them, and of course, all of us acknowledge them. We also acknowledge the lady, the NGO who organized this trip, Mrs. Maureen, Dr. Mrs. Maureen Eguche, who is here with them. So, Your Excellency, sir, if I may invite you, please. His Excellency is autographing a publication for them, and this will be presented to the children and their chaperone. Help him bring the books.
Opportunity to talk about it. Yes, they're also part of it. It's part of the process.
Yeah, I don't have it. These children were sponsored to this Model UN conference by the Rivers State government. I would like to invite His Excellency and Professor Wale Soyinka to make the presentation. Yes, but the presentation will be made by our Nobel laureate, Professor Wale Soyinka, CFR. Please, one by one. Aha. John.
And of course, while His Excellency is giving this level of encouragement to these kids, it is also pertinent to note that the Empowerment Support Initiative, an NGO in Rivers State, has also been of strong support in the kindergarten education. They have tried, and of course, everywhere in the state, we can see what they are doing. Once more, please, let's appreciate these children. Your Excellencies, I have always told you, the Rivers children always have a way of holding me down. They have said that they have planned a thank you. And Your Excellency, if I don't permit them, they will go home crying. It's one of those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable Governor of Rivers State, His Excellency, Right Honorable Chibike Rotimi Amechi, the Deputy Governor of Rivers State, Engineer Tele Ikuru, the Honorable Commissioner of Education, Barrister Dame Lawrence-Nemi Lawrence, our royal fathers and mothers of the day, the chairman of this occasion, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ms. Sekadin P. Stamno Ruben. On behalf of the Three River State student delegation from public schools to the 39th edition of the National High School Model United Nations Conference, which was held in New York, United States of America, we wish to appreciate the Governor of Rivers State, the government of Rivers State, that is the Governor of Rivers State, as well as the Honorable Commissioner of Education for Rivers State, for their effort in providing us with the rare opportunity to be at the United States of America, moreover, the United Nations headquarters in New York, by providing us with adequate funding for our trip. Under the guidance of the Country Director of Future Trust Initiative for Capacity Building, Dr. Mrs. Maureen Egbuche, the lady whose duty is to prepare all the student delegates for the conference. Due to my experience and the experience of the other student delegates, I must say the conference is one of a kind, since it equips students who are willing to learn with skills which are necessary for our daily activities and for the future. Such skills include research conducting skills, using the internet, public speaking, confidence building, conflict resolution, as well as social etiquette. And I believe that these such skills which I have acquired, as well as the others, will be very useful to me in the future. This conference is definitely a life-changing one because we got to meet many young people, namely high school students from other schools and different countries, and so many more, which are numerous to mention. However, I want to use this opportunity to say it would be extremely wonderful if more students from public schools get involved in this program so as to get equipped with the already mentioned skills which are necessary for leadership and everyday life. Once again, I sincerely wish to say thank you to Rivers State Government and the Rivers State Government, and I pray that their efforts toward enhancing education in Rivers State will never go down the drain in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, no, please go ahead. Appreciate her. Appreciate her. Your Excellency, when she was saying that she was grateful to the Rivers State government, having had the opportunity of going to United States, and also mentioned United Nations building. Your Excellency, people will not understand. We're talking of children from Tube. We're talking about children who are not from the high class, who are not children of the privileged few. We're talking about children who, by the virtue of the kind of education brought about by His Excellency the Governor of Rivers State, now have an opportunity to compete with the rest of the world. Once more, let's appreciate His Excellency. Your Excellency, my job here is done for the morning, just to invite the Permanent Secretary, the Ministry of Education, Dr. Richard Ofuru, to tell you a few words as a way of rounding off this session. Dr. Ofuru, please. A round of applause for him, please.
Your Excellencies, Your Excellencies, Your Excellencies. Let me start this, my simple assignment, with a story justifying why I must say thank you and well done to my governor for this summit. A man set out for his farm in my village. My village is some 5 kilometers to Ahoda, along the east-west road. On his way, a white man who was finding his way to Ahoda stopped him to inquire the proper route to Ahoda. He directed the white man properly, but instead of continuing to the farm, he returned home, locked up himself, and refused to see anybody. All attempts to make him open the door proved abortive. It was only when a very respected chief came and ordered him to open the door that he agreed. When asked the reason for his action, he replied, I quote him, "This mouth I used to talk with a white man. Is it the mouth I used to talk with ordinary people?" Unquote. What I'm actually saying in effect, that this hand that Governor Amechi has made me shake with Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, and other eminent dignitaries, whom I wave at the television, I will not shake anybody today. Thank you, my governor and members of your cabinet, for making us meet and listen to these great men of wisdom by your approval of this summit. The first #1 citizen of this state, His Royal Majesty, King Alfred the who started this education crusade. Sir, we appreciate you. Our lawmakers, our past leaders, scholars, and all participants, especially our brothers and sisters from across the country, we wish to thank you for honoring us with your presence. Finally, let me ask God to grant us wisdom and understanding as we listen to the words of wisdom. For those who may leave earlier, I wish you a safe journey to your various destinations. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you very much, sir. Very quickly, sirs, we will be ending this formal opening ceremony very shortly with the national anthem. Just to make an announcement, tea is served at the back, so please, let's have some tea, short tea break for only 20 minutes. We'll be back by 12:05. But I would like to inform some of us, we have a short book signing ceremony in the room adjacent. You can see the doors opening. His Excellency, the Governor, His Excellency, the Deputy Governor, Professor Wole Soyinka, Professor Tekena Tamuno, Captain Elechi Amadi, Professor Alagoa, and the Commissioner and the Permanent Secretary for Education will please join us. Seats are reserved for you, and we have a short ceremony there while the rest of us have tea. Professor Ayobanjo will certainly join them. Thank you very much. The national anthem. Tea served.